Good day. This is Marco from AEB, and today I'm going to present the first chapter of our 2020 catalog, the chapter about wine yeast. All of the yeast presented in this catalog are unique to AEB. They come from different situations. They can be from yeast banks, so institutions like universities where we gain access to their collection and commercialize some of the strains. Isolation from natural environments where our technicians, in collaboration with wineries, select certain yeast and propagate them and produce them. Hybridization, where we use yeast already available in our collections to do a genetic recombination, not a modification. It's a natural sexual reproduction where we want to emphasize certain characteristics, always starting, of course, with the technological characteristics listed here. Can the yeast survive drying? We want to make sure there's always a low VA production, low SO2 productions, so forth. Many yeast, though, come from well-defined characteristics and are available in this AEB collections. And in this catalog, for example, we have several yeast from the Baiana strain. They are known to be workhorse because of their ability to withstand harsh conditions. First of all, high alcohol. So normally they can be used, for example, for secondary fermentation in sparkling to restart their stock. We have also cryophilic yeast, for example, Saccharomyces uvarum, which are good to ferment at really low temperature and are chosen sometimes for the ability of creating a good creamy wine with high content in glycerin and as a consequence a little less alcohol. We also have in our collection non-saccharomyces to bring complexity, almost like a character of a wild fermentation to our wines. And then, of course, the Cerevisiae, which we can specialize through the selection that we were describing before. Most of our research is done in collaboration with universities. Here is all the universities that recently we have collaborating with, and I emphasize in yellow when we are talking about projects involving yeast. So quite a bit of the project that we carry, mostly sponsoring PhD students, are in the yeast field. Once we have the strains that we want to propagate, we collaborate with a plant in Sweden, and this plant received the visits of our technicians, mostly from our facilities in France and Italy, the one in Graz, which is just outside of Paris, and the one in Brescia, which is about 1 hour east of Milan in Italy. This is where we actually have our yeast collection preserved, so in duplicates, and we have PCR machines where we are able to match the production from Sweden with our collection, making sure it's the same. So the yeast that we present in these catalogs, we define them with one or two words here. Yeast for the big reds, so yeast that are able to produce enzymes to extract from the skins more phenolics, more color. Also yeast that are able to produce glycerin and polysaccharides to contribute to the volume of the wine. I've listed 3 years. The varietal, we define the Fermol Premier Cru because it's pretty neutral, so we'll respect the characteristic of the varietal. Low Yan, the Fermol Mediterranean, which is known for big ester production, but also for the very low nitrogen requirement. And then the Fermol Super 16, which is a pretty interesting yeast that came from the isolation in the field from the island of Samos in Greece, where a lot of Passito style wines are produced. So a yeast that was selected for being able to withstand really high osmotic pressure in very rich and high sugar juices, and also ferment high alcohol. But also lately we use it a lot on big reds because of its ability of producing enzymes. So this enzyme will contribute to the extraction from the grapes every time this yeast is resuspended during a pump over. Is able to work on the skins. Also, because of the enzyme production, we notice that a lot of the time fermentation with Fermol Super 16 ends up with a very clean wine. The pretty, those are yeast that we can use for light reds or big rosé, like the Fermol Red Fruit, an yeast that came out from a study of hybridization where we were looking for high thiol production, but this is also a big esters production, so very much rich in aromatic. We can use it for modern rosés, so rosés that are a little more loaded in color and expect more fruit. Fromage Rouge, which is a yeast from our old collection, so sort of workhorse of the old times where winemakers were looking mostly for consistency and the ability of yeast to withstand sort of harsh conditions, for example, high temperature where temperature control was not available. Pretty much a very consistent yeast workhorse for reds. Fermol PB 2033, which is an yeast also pretty old from our collection, is actually held as reference for rosé yeast at the Institute of Rosé in France. Is an yeast that produces a lot of floral aromatics compared to the red fruit. It will be more used for old-fashioned rosé, the ones with a salmon hue that are actually coming back in popularity recently. The Delicate, this is our collection of yeast with a high aromatic expression. So we have the first two that come out also from the research that we have done with the University of Reggio Emilia to emphasize thiol production. So the Fermol Floral, the Fermol Lime, so respectively more floral thiols and more citrus thiols, both very interesting for Sauvignon Blanc production. Fermol Arome Plus, which produces beta-glucosidases, so enhances the expression of monoterpenes, therefore is largely utilized for muscat, but lately also found its application in varieties like Pinot Grigio. We have seen a lot of utilization like that in California for Pinot Grigio to express more in this variety. Because it's an yeast that was selected for Moscato, is used to ferment to low alcohol. If you want to bring it to 13-14%, you will have to boost the yeast available nitrogen as a consequence. The Fermol Sauvignon, which is a yeast that produces the enzyme that is able to produce 4-MMP starting from cysteine as a precursor, so very expressive for Sauvignon Blanc, of course, for the production of this 4-MMP thiol and expression of box tree aromas. The Fermol Elegance, which we call the varietal because it's pretty neutral itself, but it's one characteristics that basically we selected it for in this research that we also done with a university in Italy, trying to select an yeast that wouldn't metabolize sulfur. So this is an yeast that if you have excessive sulfur coming from the vineyard or coming from KMS at the receiver on the grapes, will not cause H2S production. And then the glutathione, which we call protected because it's an yeast that produces a lot of glutathione, which is a very strong antioxidant. So with this yeast, you can avoid utilizing products for protecting your juice, your wine from oxygen, products like SO2 or ascorbic. You can use this yeast and make sure that your wine will be rich in a natural antioxidant. The fruity, those are yeast that produce a lot of esters. In the case of the Fermol Tropical, also a lot of thiols of the tropical kind. The Fermol Chardonnay is an yeast that also produce very creamy wines because the cell tend to go through a quick autolysis when they're done fermenting. So a lot of production of manoproteins and polysaccharides and meat palate. Then we have a selection of Baianus yeast. For restarting fermentation, we have the Complete Killer, which is not listed here. We have the Fermol Blanc, which is an yeast for generic whites when you want a solid and consistent fermentation, even fruit wines. The Fermol 2, more of a workhorse, very successful also in cider. The Probios, which is a certified organic Baianus yeast. The Cristal, which is also certified Baianus and also recognized as one of the yeast to ferment in the Champagne region, used both for primary and Prise de Mousse. Fermol Charmat with a very interesting technological characteristic of being a really good flocculant, so really good for production of Prosecco or in general sparkling wine fermented in pressurized tanks. And then the very different, let's call it very different, the Fermal cryo fruit, which is a Saccharomyces uvarum, like we mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. Really high glycerin production, really good in fermenting at a low temperature, low 40s, 10 Celsius. Levulia alcomeno, non-saccharomyces yeast, high producers of organic acid. So if you're lacking in acidity, this is a yeast that will use some of the carbon not to produce alcohol, so maybe you'll have a little less alcohol, but to produce more organic acid. Levulia torula, which is another non-saccharomyces used for complexity, high producer of thiols, high producers of polysaccharides for really creamy wines. And that's what we call the biodynamic. This is a yeast that you can use in lieu of chemicals to protect your grapes, your must. In the mechanical harvester or at the receiver, it will consume oxygen. It will also compete against Brettanomyces, against lactobacillus, so against all those microorganisms that you don't want in the media. And to finish, all these yeast are certified kosher, so they're available with this particular certificate. Hope you learned something, and we'll see you for the next chapter.